Just asked my producer just asked, is he one of the little people? And the answer is yes, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But you're bigger than some of the other little people, Stephen,
Yes.
just so you know. I just
do
want to
a
be clear
rankings.
about that.
Maybe a new rankings
do.
Yeah. You like rankings?
I do like rankings.
Yeah.
I will do that. I will rank all the little people on the show.
Okay, let's jump into the love list and starts with Chris Godwin, who's playing like a big man at the moment.
Yeah.
12 targets coming off that game against the Steelers. Not many people produced in that game, but he did, and he's on the love list this week.
Since he's returned, he's had 6 or more receptions in all 3 games. He's had 10 or more targets in 2 out of the 3 games. 32% target share last week for Tom Brady. And guess who's here? A team of little people, the Carolina Panthers. They're just like, they've already made vacation plans. They're already phoning it in. They're already just like, I ain't guarding him. Like, I'm just telling you, Carolina, we have a lot of negative stats around the Carolina Panthers this year, but here's one that's relevant to Chris Godwin. The 5th most receptions per game to the slot are allowed by the Carolina Panthers. 6th most yards per game as well. Obviously, Godwin plays the majority of his snaps out of the slot. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 9 for me in Week 7. He's on the love list.
Yep, playing with no restrictions after the injury now. He's just back to being Chris Godwin. And after that Bucs loss to the Steelers, I suspect they will be driving angry, to use a Nick Cage term.
Yeah.
Jaylen Waddle makes
Not
the love
a little
list.
person, Nick Cage.
No, big man.
Big man.
Real big man.
We love big. Yeah, we love Nick.
So's Jaylen Waddle.
Yeah.
In terms of his fantasy production, at least. He's had 15-plus fantasy points in all 3 games with Tua this year, where Tua was healthy, and he's on the love list this week.
Yeah, with Tua Tagovailoa coming back on a game that's on Sunday night. It'll be right here on NBC and Peacock, preceded by Football Night in America.
Hope you make the right pick.
Yeah, no, I'll pick that game correctly. But the over/under. I've had a decent run, but there've been a couple like, and last week was one of them. We'll see if I do better this week against the Steelers when Miami takes them on again right here Sunday night on NBC and Peacock. I'm a company man. Steelers, to your point, yes, he's had a lot of production. Waddle's had a lot of production with Tua. We expect Tua back. Well, the Steelers have given up 9 touchdowns to wide receivers this year. That is tied for the most in the NFL. Literally no team in the NFL has given up more touchdowns to opposing wide receivers than the Pittsburgh Steelers. They actually give up 210 yards per game to wide receivers. That's also most in the NFL. And so wide receivers who see at least 6 targets against the Steelers this year, averaging 19.2 fantasy points. We expect Jaylen Waddle to certainly get at least 6 targets. That's been one of the nice things is that, especially with Tua under center, it's been Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Like, it's a very narrow kind of target tree. Mike Gesicki and his gritty be damned. My expectation here is that Waddle has a monster game on Sunday night. He's a top 10 play for me this week.
Yep, 114 yards per game in the 3 games with Tua, and the Dolphins are 7-point favorites over the Steelers. Not much respect for the Steelers, but BetMGM thinks that they will have success. All right, Amari Cooper, who's a 6.5-point dog to the Baltimore Ravens, but he is getting all the targets at the moment, and he's on the list as well.
See if you can follow the logic here. Listen, I know like I'm heliocentric, right? And you're just whatever. You're Australian and like you love Point Break, and so there's questions about your logic and everything like that. But see if you can follow this.
Australian and I love Point Break. Those questions arise.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Like I'm just saying. Like you don't like the little people. You got a big head.
Like Patrick Swayze.
Whole thing. Right, exactly. So my point here is that massive target share, right?
Yeah.
28% so far this season. He's had double-digit targets in 4 of the last 5 games.
Yeah.
So here's a guy getting a lot of targets, and now he's playing a defense that isn't good, right? Baltimore has allowed the 6th most touchdowns to opposing wide receivers. They've allowed 12 or more fantasy points to a wide receiver in every game this year. And so Cooper, who has a touchdown himself in 4 of the last 5 games, he's top 6 in the NFL among wide receivers in terms of red zone targets. When they get in close, they look for him. He gets a massive target share, and it's a bad defense that gives up a lot of points to wide receivers. You see where we're going here?
This is quite a walk.
I mean, I'm just telling you. I'm trying to walk you through the logic as to why Amari Cooper's on the love list this week.
I'm still thinking about Keanu Reeves yelling out that he's an FBI agent in Point Break, so I kind of lost you when you started talking about targets.
That's further proof right there. How the way you ruin movies for people is like you don't care about the little people. You're just like, I'm here on television. And by television, I mean a streaming platform, streaming internet service. That you're like, I'm just going to ruin it for everyone, because what do I care? I don't care. Get on my level.
Johnny Utah. He should be on the love list.
Exactly. Well, obviously he always is, but it just. My point is, it's like, Jay Croucher saying to America, get on my level. You look down on everyone. And perhaps you might look down on the Seattle defense, Jay Croucher.
I would. And that's why Gerald Everett is also on the love list.
That's well done.
Yeah.
That's a really nice segue there. Who says you're not a professional host? Look, the fact of the matter is this. We like starting our tight ends against the Seahawks. They've allowed 50 or more yards to a tight end in 4 out of 6 games so far this year. Teams facing the Seahawks average 8 tight end targets a game. That's tied for 6th most. Again, that is an area of the field that you can really attack Seattle. And so Gerald Everett, in a revenge game, the revenge game everyone's talking about, like you think about the glory year that Gerald Everett had with the Seahawks, singular. The glory year, Gerald Everett returning to face his old team in the Seahawks. He has had 6 or more targets in 4 of the last 5 games, so Everett should be targeted early and often in a game in which we doesn't look like Keenan Allen's going to play. He said he's practicing, but they're on a bye next week, so Keenan Allen's sort of like, I might want to take it, easy and rest and
the new Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen. I think the thing with Gerald Everett as well, he's one of the rare tight ends who has multiple fantasy games this year with double-digit points, even without touchdowns when you remove them. All right, let's jump into some others receiving votes, headlined by Alan Lazard.
Yeah, I mentioned him earlier in the show. He's scored in 4 to 5 games this year. Commanders have allowed the 3rd most touchdowns to opposing wide receivers. We already talked about Rondell Moore earlier in the show. Wan'Dale Robinson, even if you don't want to start him, and I do think it might be viable to start him, he's wide receiver 30 for me this week. I definitely think he is a must-add. You want him on your roster again. He had 4 targets last year and played on 15 snaps. Alec Pierce, we've talked about on the show quite a bit. 3 straight games with 12 or more fantasy points against the Titans team, allowing the 2nd most yards per game to wide receivers. And Michael Gallup, who saw season highs in targets and snap rate. Dak is back, and he gets Detroit, which allows the 8th most yards per game to opposing wide receivers. Michael Gallup, always a red zone target. Whether it's Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones, Hunter Henry is a viable tight end streamer this week, as he's had 3 straight games with a 20% target share. He's had back-to-back games with over 50 yards. I do think that for the lack of dynamicism, is that a word?
I don't believe so.
Okay, let's go with it. Neither is heliocentric, but you used that yesterday. For the lack of dynamic playmaking ability and fantasy fireworks out of the pass catchers of the Patriots, Henry is a big red zone threat and has been involved more recently.
9 touchdowns last year for Hunter Henry. All right, let's flip to hate. Headlined by Drake
I also like
London.
Hayden Hurst, by the way, just so you know.
You like Hayden Hurst?
I like
okay,
Hayden.
good.
I like Hayden Hurst. Against the Falcons, who are bottom 3 in yards and receptions allowed to tight ends. Just so you know.
Okay, but you don't like Drake London, who headlines the hate list.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, here's my question for you. My question for you about London: what will last longer, Drake London's fantasy drought or a head of lettuce?
Yeah, well, very topical. Very topical.
There you go.
Very
God
good.
bless. Very international newsy of me. There you go. You see what I did there? It's because London, right? And his last name's
very
London,
good,
right? Exactly.
London, where it's happy hour right now.
Where it is happy hour right now in London. Here's my concern is that I think this is a tough matchup, right? 4 straight games with under 55 yards for Drake London. He hasn't caught more than 4 passes in a game since week 2. Mariota completing under 15 passes in 4 straight games. All they want to do is run. It's a maddening, mind-numbing offense that Atlanta's running. And here's the worst part, Jay. It's sort of working.
I know.
Right?
It kills you.
They're competitive in games.
Cover the spread every game.
Right. We've talked about this. They cover every game.
6-0.
Right. They're 6-0 against the spread. They're much more competitive. They've won more games than they have any right to. And so I don't see Arthur Smith changing this. And so then you think about the fact that in addition to all that it's a run-centric, super run-centric offense. They're playing the Bengals. Since he has allowed 2 touchdowns this entire year to opposing wide receivers. That is 3rd fewest in the NFL. They're top 10 in terms of fewest receptions and yards allowed to opposing wide receivers. So Drake London makes the 8 list. DJ Moore, outside my top 40, even in a brutal week, right? Under 60 yards in every game so far this year. He's going to be shadowed by Carlton Davis. I'm out on Robert Woods this week as well. 0 games with more than 4 catches, playing a tough Colts defense. And Big Bob Tunyon. Again, my Commanders lead the NFL. They've had much success in 2 things: lawsuits and allowing the 4th fewest yards to opposing tight ends this year.
Yeah. I was going to say the Commanders' defense, it's like a tennis player that can't serve, can't hit ground strokes, can't hit volleys, but great drop shot. Great drop shot. Can stop tight ends.
Right.
Really good at stopping tight ends. That's it.
It's the one thing. Like TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert, Evan Ingram, all better than Bob Tonyan, held to under 30 yards. I understand after last week you might be excited about him. I think that was just sort of like a weird one game. He's had 2 games this year, just 2 games where his snap rate has been above 50%. I think that was just sort of against the Jets last week. It was sort of game script dependent, and that was what was working for Rodgers. But I think he goes back to Dobbs and Lazard in this one. And honestly, I think they run fairly successfully against the Commanders.
I think so too. All right, we're going to break. When we come back, quarterback love, hate.
I was wondering. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.